Welcome back to Love, Money, Rock and Roll. Let's get into it. I met Katya in my first year of high school. Somehow we ended up dating. She and I, rather incredible. Her mother had been working in Japan for some time, same as my parents. Time passed and everything seemed to be going well, and then suddenly she vanished. And then we needed a new avatar. Oh man. One day she told me we couldn't be together. Something about our mother getting transferred. I could probably accept that story. I could forgive and forget, but didn't hurt her even a little. Was I just a coworker? Someone you could simply cut ties with when you transfer to another office? Why, we should have an office farewell party. I would have stocked up on gifts. I'm sorry, goodbye now. Cold, hollow, everyday words. And after all that, she was just gonna show up in my class. Nice to meet you. I look forward to studying with you. Seriously? Was there not another school in all of Tokyo? I couldn't believe it. But still, somewhere deep inside, an ember of hope remained. What if she came back because of me? And that's the reason that she's here right now? Right, hope springs eternal. I'm afraid we're not going for that chick. Because we got a childhood friend, a former ex, a rich klutz, and someone who has a bad past. I think those are the four routes. Talk to her. I had to talk to her. The bell at last. I worked up the courage and she was gone. Hey, Nick, you asleep or what? Kyosuke's words seemed different from afar, as if from another world. What was I gonna say to her? Ah, long time no see, how are things? Anyway, why didn't she approach me first? Was she scared? Shy? Nonsense. That wasn't like her at all. Then, she probably didn't want to talk. I knew her too well. Kyosuke was shaking me frantically, muttering something, but I was just ignoring him. Nikolai. A new voice. Nikolai. Himitsu? I lifted my eyes and looked somewhat past her. Nikolai, do you read me? Maybe you should drink alcohol. Maybe you get your senses back. Yeah, what is it? You've forgotten again, haven't you? She was pouting comically. I knew you would, so I decided I'd fetch you. What did she want with me? What for? Oh right, we had made some kind of plan. What did that matter now? Dude, you need some help. I had no idea what I was gonna say to her. Regardless, I had to make a decision. If I was gonna run after her, I had to get going. Do nothing. How much longer was I gonna let this continue? A surgeon has to excise the rotting flesh to prevent disease from spreading to the rest of the body. Since we're classmates now, I was bound to find out eventually why she'd come back. Of course I remember. I said confidently, stood up, took Himitsu by the hand and headed for the door. Wait, what about... I turned and gave Kyosuke a glare so furious that he shut up immediately. Anger, resentment, longing. All these emotions intermingled within me. I walked down the hallway, oblivious to the world around me, and walked right into someone. Or not. Alright. Thankfully, we have 20 pages of saves. That's going to be really nice. Especially when I forget which is which. I stopped only after we reached the lockers. I looked around the schoolyard. What if she was still here? Nikolai. Himitsu ventured timidly. What? I snapped back, turned around and realized I was still holding her hand. Sorry. I let go. Did something happen? Don't say it didn't. I can see something's wrong. Kyosuke looked agitated too. Kyosuke? I snickered. The only thing likely to agitate him is some unrealistically shaped anime girl. I meant that he must have I meant that he was telling me about another anime again. You know, the one about magical girls. They showed at 6, you must have seen it. Why was I lying to her? Why was I lying now? I knew I couldn't hide her forever. Sooner or later, Himitsu was gonna run into her at school. Or worse yet, Catherine would show up at her house. They did know each other after all. Yeah, no, it's nothing. Let's go to the store. Where did you say it was again? By the station? Guess what? So, the teacher asked Raikun today, when did man first land on the moon? And you know what he said? 2079. Wait, what? I think the answer is never, but, teach their own. I think this game takes place during the 80s or something. Oh cool, the railroad thing's animated. Maybe nothing did, where she was concerned. The store wasn't too impressive from the outside. Maybe it was the low prices that drew girls in. By the standards of our school, Himitsu's family wasn't terribly wealthy, but her father worked for the government, so they weren't poor either. We went inside. Wow. Yeah, he definitely looks like someone who'd get into fights. Definitely doesn't look Japanese or anything. How do you like it? It's fine. How about this one? I think this color will be in fashion this winter. It's fine. What do you think of this dress? A little discontent was starting to seep into her voice. I liked the last one better. If only I knew what she tried on before. I was in no mood for a fashion show. To me, Himitsu looked good in any outfit. Why did she even need all this stuff? Did she not have enough clothes? I had known Himitsu for a long time, but I could never recall her being in a relationship. It's probably because she likes you, but we're gonna be a jerk about it and not do that. Hold it, was I feeling jealous? Of course not. And no, if she had found somebody, I'd have been the first to hear about it. I think what matters is that you like it. And this one not so much. What had she done to deserve this treatment from me? Catherine is back, I said, trying to be casual. What? She showed up in class today right before the last lesson. I guess we're gonna be classmates now. Really? I see you're not too happy. I'm happy, I just thought she'd moved away permanently. Well, that's what I thought too. And what is she planning to do now? What do you mean? I mean... She's been gone so long, you're seniors already. You know, honestly, I hadn't asked her about her life plans. I hadn't even talked to her. What about you? Are you glad? Wouldn't call the situation straightforward, but what's there to be glad about? You know full well what happened last year. Yeah. That's in the past now. We'll see what happens. I'm sure she has her reasons. At least I didn't have to keep lying to Himitsu. Sure, I hadn't told her everything, but what was the point of dumping all my worries on her? Yes, keep your worries to yourself. In the end, this was between me and Catherine. Are you not gonna buy anything? Ooh, maybe Catherine's a demon, just like that other game called Catherine. That'd be interesting. Probably not. No, everything's pretty expensive here. I'm almost on allowance for the month. But it's only the 7th. Well, let me get you a present then. That wine yellow dress looked good on you. No, it didn't. I look fat in it. You? Fat? I laughed loudly, drawing annoyed looks from the store clerks and other shoppers. See? This is why I didn't want to come. I whispered. Mitsu just smiled and said nothing back. We hardly talked on the way home. I felt awkward. Now would have been a great time to hear stories about Reiko Asaya-chan, who couldn't hit a volleyball over the net. Don't feel bad because of Katya. Catherine. I feel fine. Come on, I can see it. Don't worry. I'll be alright. It's been long enough. The important thing is that you believe that yourself. I do. It's just a bit unexpected. But you know how she is. She comes uninvited, leaves without saying goodbye. Always self-centered. Thankfully, by then we'd already approached my house. Well, I'll be off. See you tomorrow. See ya. I wanted to say something else, but instead just walked as she walked through the gate. I spent the rest of the day trying futilely not to think about Catherine. If I continued like this, I was going to lose my mind. Every 5 minutes the phone rang. I didn't pick up because I knew it was Kyosuke. Who else would be calling me? When it came to that crazy otaku, I was lucky he wasn't pounding on my door. In the end, I unplugged the phone. You know, it could have been an important phone call. But, oh well. I tried to keep myself distracted with TV and video games, but they got boring quickly. I even did some housework for a change. Homework for a change. You should probably do some housework. From what I can tell, there's a bag of groceries on the floor, a box, and looks like a jug of water. You should have those on a counter or something. Played the bass for a bit, and fixed myself a simple dinner. Needless to say, I would have rather eaten Himitsu's cooking, but she must have been busy. Not that she was under any obligation to make meals for me on a daily basis, I was just used to it. Thinking about it, I realized my habits had become an integral part of my life, to the point where they started to take center stage in it. Catherine's reappearance was threatening to throw everything off balance. It was like I'd grown senile and flabby in the past year and a half, to the point where I craved stability above all. But why did I need chaos in my life if nothing good was going to come of it anyway? Suddenly, the doorbell rang. It was probably Himitsu, but at this hour... It's totally Catherine. Stupid pranksters. Yet someone had definitely been here. As on the way back, I discovered a note at the doorstep. The note read, "Nikolai, son, be careful. You're in grave danger. Certain very powerful people linked to your father are after you. This is not a prank or hoax." Yeah, sure. Next, in order would be a busty magical girl in my living room, ready to obey my every command. Kyosuke? This isn't funny. My parents. The incident. They fled the Soviet Union when I was 7. In Japan, they worked as regular engineers at Kobayashi Corporation. After they passed, I had the option of going back to the Soviet Union to live with my relatives, but I ended up staying since I'd lived in Japan most of my life. My father's friends had helped take care of legal formalities, while his bank account kept me from starving. Kyosuke. If this note was a joke, its author failed to deliver the punchline. What if there was a simpler explanation? What if it was real? I twirled the note between my fingers. It was an ordinary piece of notebook paper, carefully clipped. The words were Japanese, written in a steady hand, although the spelling left something to be desired. Why write by hand at all, I wondered. Wouldn't it have been simpler to type out the message? Or in a pinch? Clip words from a newspaper and assemble the notes that way, like in those cheesy crime shows? At least I could rule Kyosuke out. I would have recognized his handwriting. You were in grave danger, linked to your father. What if it were those punks? Just because their parents weren't loaded doesn't mean they had A's in Japanese. Or maybe Ellie-sama's servants had decided to take revenge for the cafeteria incident. No, that was ridiculous. Ultimately, who would bother a regular Japanese student? And why now of all times? Right on the heels of her return too. You know, it probably was her, but we'll see. Catherine had been a decent but not straight A student, and after a year and a half without practice, at any rate, she was the prime suspect now. It didn't even occur to me to ask why. Her motives had stopped making sense to me long ago. Either way, I had to try to find some answers at school tomorrow. But now it was time for bed. I hadn't felt so worn out by the end of the day in a long time. It's probably because you were yelling. But sleep wouldn't come. I kept tossing and turning and getting mad at myself for it. Meanwhile, the clock ticked past midnight. I flinched and perked up my ears. Perhaps I'd imagined it. Not again. I walked up to the door on stiff legs and asked in a shaky voice, "Who is it?" "Nikolai?" I breathed a sigh of relief and opened the door. "Do you know what time it is?" "Sorry, but your phone was off." "So, is that a reason to turn up here in the dead of night?" "No, but I tried calling several times. I wanted to know if you were going to school." "If you're so concerned about my attendance, you shouldn't wake me up in the middle of the night." "Is this happening again?" "I think it's happening again." "No, it's my fault. I should be apologizing. It's been an awful day. I mean, it's been a tough day. Very busy. And I was already asleep." "That's a lie." "Okay, I'll be going then. Good night." I shut the door behind her and returned to bed. If today was tough, what would tomorrow be like? Probably no better. Evidently. 8/9/1987. Oh, that's the date of the game. Neat. Hello, doorbell of joy. In that medley were the cheerful chirping of birds. Hold on, this had already happened before. Exactly. What day is it today? Tuesday, she replied frightened. What's wrong? Tuesday, huh? Alright then. Tuesday it is then. I scanned the room meticulously, which meant everything was fine. It just felt like tomorrow hadn't come. What do you mean? Well, like when you wake up, and today is still yesterday, like a sci-fi novel. Groundhog Day. You read too many of those. Himitsu laughed. Things did seem to be running their normal course, except now I became aware of a peculiar smell. I sniffed the air. Is that? I preferred breakfast at a time. A big pot of borscht. I still didn't look up what that was. Good lord, but why? Didn't you ask for some yesterday? No, I didn't. I just mentioned it passing. It was a joke. Well, you know what? You're gonna have to eat this joke now. Soup for breakfast now. Now that was certainly unorthodox. I mean, I eat ramen for breakfast sometimes, so it's not that different. In any case, the borscht tasted quite good. Granted, it wasn't exactly a traditional recipe. What do you think? Why aren't you eating? I want to hear what you think. Oh yeah, sorry, it's delicious. Really? She didn't believe me. Yes, really, why wouldn't it be? True enough. Now don't you dare complain about my cooking again. When did I ever complain? You just don't get my humor. I do get it. I thought it was some lighthearted banter, but Himitsu didn't look like her usual self. Every so often a shadow of sadness passed over her face. Something happened? No. What about you? What about me? Everything's fine, just a bit unexpected. Don't worry, I'll be alright. Good, if you say so. Let's go, or we'll be late for school. If we're lucky, we'll run into that other person. Somehow we just couldn't find a suitable subject for conversation. I didn't want to tell Himitsu about the note just yet. She probably hadn't had any happen to her overnight that was worth sharing. Sure, I could have talked about some random stuff, but not my thing. Finally, we've reached the generic school. No incidents today, I hope? I hemmed. Alright, see ya. Don't sleep in class. You wish. Okay, now I did think a way to snag Catherine's notebook without anyone noticing. I hope she'd written something in it, preferably in Japanese. Oh, no kidding. Hold it right there. School principal, what was his name? Ah, yes. Kiyama sensei. Follow me out, officers, please. And this is about what he did yesterday. But class is about to start. It won't take long. Huh. Kyoer was always cloyly polite and cold. On top of that, he dressed and carried himself in a strictly European manner. I'd always been shocked by how devoted some Japanese people were to the Western lifestyle and culture. I couldn't think of any number of sayings on the subject, along the lines of "to thine own self be true." Although here this had become something of a tradition in its own right. This was after all an elite school. What's the issue, exactly? Please come along. Well, naturally, he wasn't going to reprimand me in the middle of the hallway, in the view of the entire school, was he? Well, if it isn't Ojo-sama herself. Standing next to the principal's desk was in fact Ellie-sama. Ah, the boar from yesterday. She seemed equally surprised to see me here. Yesterday's cafeteria incident came back to me in vivid detail. The madam did give me a handkerchief in the end, to wipe myself, and I tossed it into the dirty laundry at home. Whoops, I needed to return it. Let me guess, you're a frequent visitor here? Well, I certainly didn't expect to find myself groveling at your grace's feet today. That'll be all, Kobayashi-san. That last name sounded familiar. Ellie bade. The principal applied a farewell and walked past me, shooting me an angry look. So, Anakin, do you know why you're here? I've got a couple theories. I understand that Japanese culture is alien to you, but here at this school, we have students of every nationality. We endeavor to provide them all with the best opportunities. So why did you punch one of them in the face? Here we go. What about my situation? Let's not make this personal now. No, what I meant was, embarrassed, he removed his glasses and began wiping them slowly with a special cloth. I meant to say that we make no distinctions between our students. The rules are the same for everyone. I understand. In that case, you must also understand that you can't just skip classes for no reason. He put his glasses back on and gave me a hard look. And speaking of your attendance record, I understand. If you understand, why do you keep skipping classes? Do you know who sponsors our school? Kobayashi Corporation. That name does mean something, does it not? The company's president himself is the chairman of our board of school of trustees, the century-old traditions. At that point, I tuned him out. Kobayashi Corporation, Kobayashi Ellie. Things are adding up interesting. I wondered, why would she still be the school queen if she'd been born into an ordinary family? A family like Iwamura's, for instance. Inokin, what's the smirk for? Did I say something funny? I'm very sorry, Kiyama-sensei. This will not happen again. I bowed to the ground. Alright, that's enough. The fact that you understand and don't let it happen again. Very well, go now or you'll be late for class. Thank you very much, I'm going now. I formally took my leave and marched out of his office. And proceeded to instantly skip class because why would I go to class? That's a waste of time. I'm here to figure out why someone threatened me. So, why didn't you tell me this Ellie-sama of yours is a Kobayashi? I did tell you. No, you didn't. You said her grandfather was the chair of Boardie's trustees. As if I'm supposed to know who the chairman is. That's the problem. You never know anything. Anyway, why do you ask? I got called in the principal's office just now. For skipping class. Why else? At that moment the bell rang. Only now did I remember Catherine. Her seat was behind me, so I couldn't watch her constantly. That's probably a good thing, otherwise you'll be staring into her soul. Surprisingly, I was hardly at all anxious. Sleep had cleared my mind, and I found the whole situation more intriguing than troubling. The closing bell finally rang. Catherine got up and left the classroom. This was my chance. Anoken. Go to the teacher's room with Iwamura-san and bring out the apprentice for the next lesson. That was close. I looked at Iwamura. She stood nearby, staring indifferently at the window. Right now, I only wanted to get out of the classroom as quickly as possible. Hi. Well, should we get going? I can go alone. But we were told to go together. I managed by myself. Under different circumstances, I would have gladly agreed with her. Listen, I understand and all, but I've already been to the principal's office today, and I'm not burning with a desire to go back. Suit yourself. The hallways were unexpectedly empty. It's as if students were hiding away in anticipation of something. Iwamura walked in silence. This was how she was acting after I defended her a day earlier. The awkward silence desperately demanded a conversation to break it. So, do you have to do this often? I couldn't think of anything better to say. She raised her eyes and looked at me in surprise. That was a first. So I'd achieved the desired effect after all. Well, of course, I'm the class president. Oh yeah, right, my bad. Silence again. It's just we've never talked, I don't even know your first name. Why do you need to? It's only natural. Here, I'm Nikolai. Japanese culture. Addressing someone by their first name is a sign of close, possibly vulgar familiarity. This was especially true in our case, but I didn't bother with all these conventions. Kagome. Kagome? Oh man. Every time I hear that I just think of a horror game. Nothing, it's just, well, you know, it's a weird name. Not weirder than yours. What's wrong with my name? It's a normal name. Nikolai. Nicholas, if you prefer, or Nick. You're all the same. She was starting to get worked up, it seemed. Who's we? Gaijin? No, the local morons. How rude. Listen, do you have a problem with me? I think you have a problem. Oh really, and what is it? I'm curious. Who's that new foreigner? You've been staring at her non-stop for 2 days now. Have you been spying on me? I'd have to be blind not to notice. How are you staring at her if she's behind you? Huh. She responded unfazed. That's not really any of your business. Of course it's not. But neither is my life any of yours, so why are you prying? She had a point. She's somebody that I used to know. We knew each other at one point. We were in the same class. I'd say you take an unhealthy interest in your old acquaintances. Why did you bring her up anyway? It's not every day that we have a new student in our class. And such a striking foreigner at that. I'm a foreigner too, you know. Yeah, sure. I knew it. Not only would my face not pass as Japanese, but now I was being denied the title of a proper Gaijin as well. Are you always like this? We've arrived. Wait here. Hey. Just in time too. Before I could open my mouth, Kagome went to the teacher's room, and before I knew it, she's back with a large stack of paper. Carry it. What, all of it? What if we each carry half? Didn't you yourself volunteer to come along? No, I didn't. The teacher sent me, if you recall. Fine, give it here. No way, that won't do either. Spurred on my wounded pride, I walked fast, so the return trip took considerably less time. I dropped the mountain of papers onto the teacher's desk with a thud, while Kagome took her seat and returned to her usual window gazing. I guess no one deserves to be bullied, but man, I could almost understand those punks from yesterday. Judging by the clock, the bill was less than a minute away. Catherine's desk was empty. I turned to Michael, who sat next to her. Did Catherine? Did she go somewhere? Don't know. Wasn't really paying attention. Why? No reason. How long did she leave? Thanks. I turned at the corner at the run it stopped. What am I doing? I pressed the ear to the door, but no sound was coming from the other side. I wandered the empty hallways and didn't even know how I ended up in the old wing. Our school had been repeatedly rebuilt since it first opened its doors right after the war, with new buildings added as old ones fell into decay. Inefficient, if you ask me. Why not tear down the old structure first and build a new one in its place? Theoretically, there shouldn't have been anyone in this wing, but I suddenly heard music. A guitar. Huh. None other than the Kobayashi Elite. Ellie. She was the last person I expected to find here. She was doing a fine job playing, though. Tune was nice, and the execution was equally good. Music, at least, was one area that I knew a thing or two about. Ellie herself seemed to be glowing with happiness. Looking nothing like a prim princess I had encountered in the principal's office this morning. Cool thing, or cool, though this lyrical discretion was, I certainly couldn't let a chance slip by like this. I cannot speak today. Well, what do we have here? The guitar went abruptly silent. My applause was the only sound interrupting the silence that had descended on the place. Ojo-sama, I didn't know you played the guitar too. Many emotions flickered across her face. Embarrassment, surprise, annoyance, resentment. You... Please pay no attention to me, carry on. What are you doing here? I followed a beautiful siren song, but I could never imagine it would be you, Ojo-sama. Enough. Hey, come on, don't be upset. I just didn't realize you played the guitar. Somehow, I wouldn't associate you with the instrument. Now the violin, maybe. I can play violin too. She cut in. Really? That's cool. Why aren't you in class? It's no mystery why I'm skipping. What about yourself? I'm not skipping. We have a break. Alright. I smirked. You don't have to make excuses to me. I'm not making excuses. You on the other hand should watch your behavior. What were you doing at the principal's office this morning? Dropped by for a cup of tea. In any case, it's none of your business. I wasn't trying to be rude, but that's exactly how it came out. Actually, it is my business, seeing as my grandfather. I'm aware. What, is it a secret? No, of course not. Even so. Hide, Ellie whispered anxiously. Why, you're on a break, I'm used to it. She must have had her reasons. Sure, we'll hide. Whatever. Alright, fine. Except I don't see where we could hide here. In there. Ellie grabbed my hand and dragged me to a small door, which I had missed initially. The door opened in a cramped utility closet. Wait, here? I mean, the last thing I want him to do is get in trouble, so... A killer combination, to say the least. The classroom door opened and several people entered. I think I heard something. You must have misheard, Kiyama-sensei. I'm not hearing things. I may be getting on in my years, but I'm still more than capable. Heavens no, Kiyama-sensei. I didn't mean anything of the sort. Anyway, this ramshackle place should have been torn down long ago. That's what I just said. A third voice joined the conversation. This ramshackle place, as you call it. I remember arriving here as a young teacher, right after the war. Traded my rifle for a pointer, you could say. Chalk taking the place of ammunition. Who would have guessed that a principal is so sentimental? Ellie suddenly fidgeted. Naturally, anyone would be uncomfortable hiding in a cramped closet with too little room even for one person. Was she uncomfortable with me in particular? I shifted my gaze. Of course she was uncomfortable. Would you be quiet? She turned red, like a boiled lobster. Her breathing became rapid and irregular. It was a really awkward situation, but it was for the both of us, and I was trying to hang on. Just because Ellie played the guitar didn't necessarily mean she had experience in the area of... I didn't finish the thought. The girl's scent hit my nose with new strength, maybe that's been. Though who is I to pass judgment on her experience? Yeah, I dated Catherine, but I'd somewhat gotten used to her, whereas here was a completely different girl standing next to me. Not just next to her. My heart started beating faster, I swallowed. What do you want from me? I made a face in my mind was supposed to mean quiet. She seemed to have understood. And after all that, you talk of, this is our cultural heritage. It should be made into a museum. Certainly, Kiyama-sensei, but let's go now. We have a meeting coming up. Yeah, forgive me, I got a bit carried away. The moment the door closed behind them, Ellie came flying out of the closet. I stepped out after her. I had to say something. It was a bit tight in there. She looked at me dumbfounded. Tight. You pervert, you groped me all over. I didn't touch you at all. You can't do that. Anyhow, it was your idea to hide in there. Yeah, but that's all there is to it. I suppose it's unbefitting of a young lady to behave like this, isn't it? Well, I'm not the best person to give you advice on these matters, but for what it's worth, I don't think there's anything wrong with playing the guitar. You must enjoy music a lot, huh? This time her smile was genuine. Then I don't see a problem. Just then a distant bell announced it was break time. Gotta go. I was left there standing alone inside an empty music classroom of an empty old wing. Strange person. This musical interlude made me entirely forget the reason I'd wound up here in the first place. I'd been looking for Catherine. I had absolutely no desire to go back to class, where I could expect another scolding. Simply skipping was bad enough, but to have to run out of the classroom right in front of the teacher? No, thank you. I managed to slip out of the building unnoticed, and here I was, free as the wind, strolling down a sidewalk in one of Tokyo's central districts. This guy's a delinquent. You shouldn't skip school, man. You get in trouble. And then you can get expelled. The note. Unpleasant thoughts crept into my head. But if she didn't write it, who did? What if it wasn't a prank? Just what was going on? More had happened to me in the past day and a half than over the course of the past year and a half. The entire time, I hadn't really socialized with anyone except maybe Mitsu. Well, add to that Kyosuke and occasionally Michael. Now Catherine was back. There was Kagome and Ollie. What next? Was I gonna turn into a magical girl? As if by chance I ended up near a familiar bar. I don't think you should be drinking when you're underage. Unless the drinking age in Japan's lower. Or, I think in Russia it's like really, really young. Like 13 or something if you have a parent. The inside wasn't crowded, which made sense for this time of day. People were supposed to be either at work or at school. Like in that joke about the 3-story building and the hurricane. Even though I wasn't a stranger here, I always had a fake passport at the ready. A classmate whose father worked in law enforcement hooked me up at one point. There were a lot of students at our school who had these passes to adult life. Heck, how could you prove it wasn't real? A document's a document, especially when some insolvent snot is shoving it in your face. Not to mention that the bar's owner was Russian. Chuckling, usually told people he used to be a pirate who was shipwrecked off the coast of Japan. That was a tall tale, of course. Most likely he was a regular immigrant, just like my parents. I sat down on the counter and ordered a beer. Hey, Cola, what's up? You're early today. Yeah, kinda worked out that way. You aren't gonna get in trouble at school, are you? You know how strict they are about these things. Okay, see, none of my business. A good bartender is invariably a good psychologist. It's practically a qualification for this job. Yep, gotta talk to a bunch of unpleasant people. I took a long pull. Catherine's back. What are you gonna do now? Try to ignore it. I don't know. Seems like the best choice of action. Because of her mother's work, probably. She couldn't come by herself, right? Most likely not. So, I'm in this weird spot now. You know what they say, life is like a zebra. A black stripe followed by a white stripe, then a black one again, and then a white one again. I've never heard that saying in my entire life. You know what? Cola, don't get down, he said encouragingly. You still have to find your whole life ahead of you. The TV will make up 100 times over yet, and if not, you'll find yourself another girl. Lots of them all over. The bartender spread out his arms, inviting apprehensive looks from the few schoolgirls nestled at the table in the furthest corner of the room. Thanks for the comforting words. There's so much else besides that anyway. Life is in full swing, and each swing hits you on the head. The bar door flew open and a group of young people entered. Having immediately recognized them from the punks the day before, I instinctively buried my face in the mug. Was I scared? So it seemed. They sat down at the table and ordered beer and cocktails for the girls. You know 'em? Wouldn't say I know 'em, but I've kind of punched one of them in the face. I gave them the occasional sidelong glance. I wonder if I should get up and leave. Wouldn't that look cowardly, though? Then again, to who? They didn't even notice me. No sooner than that, and walked over to the counter. Hey, I know you. If you say so. I don't think you know who you're dealing with, Gajan. I'm not dealing with anyone. So it wasn't you who punched my friend in the face yesterday. If it was me, he deserved it. Really? Then how about we step outside for a little chat? I looked at the bartender, but he only shrugged. Some empathy, dang. Alright, let's step out. What else could I do? Half a minute later, we were standing in the alley behind the bar. A couple older guys joined the school kids. Where did they even come from? Not so tough now, are you? Said the one I punched yesterday. I'll teach him to stand up for whores. I looked at the girl. Compared to her, Kagoma was Mother Teresa. Well, what next? Gonna beat me up? 4 against 1, that's impressive. What happened to your code of honor? The Yakuza have one. I sneered at the largest guy among them. You definitely got the mugshot of a thug. The older guys clenched their teeth, their expressions hardening. What did you say? Let's get it over with already. A thought flashed through my mind. What if I struck first? That way I'd at least retain a smidgen of self-respect. But I had no time to decide, as a strong shove to the back threw me to the ground. That was low. Their blows hit hard, but they didn't go on for long. I curled up into a ball, covering my head with my arms in shame. It hurt. By the time I recovered my senses, the guys vanished without a trace. I got up slowly and felt myself all over. Nothing was broken, it seemed. My face was mostly intact as well, except for a black eye. What could he have done? Stand by at my side and fight? Call the police? Nonsense. Hey, there's... I turned my head, sitting just a couple meters away from me was... Catherine. Hi, I guess. Hi. I shifted to a closer seat while she ordered a cocktail for herself. What's with the face? Nothing serious. Just got beat up. Bad. She wasn't buying it. I fell. Face first into concrete several times in a row. Yeah, it got lucky, but I'll get it next time. Is that so? So, are you also skipping school? Also? Well, it's nothing new to me. I guess it isn't. I heard you went to the principal. Maybe I did, what of it? The tone of her voice didn't change, but her eyes flashed. Katya, I don't want to start everything up again. Then don't. I'm not. Or was I? Just put yourself in my shoes. How would you be reacting? Wouldn't you be asking the same questions? What questions? What, am I getting in your way? Of course not, it's just, when I think about how we parted back then, that's in the past. You don't really think that I could have chosen a different school or changed my life in any way just because of you, do you? Why would I do that? Simply to avoid running into you again? That's not what I was thinking. She was right, actually, I had no comeback. So everything's alright? Of course. Then we can remain friends? Do you want us to? Why not? Past is in the past, so we have to move on, go on living. You sound like someone with PTSD. I mean, the guy just got beat up by a bunch of thugs. Is it? Great. In the course of this year and a half, I'd become so accustomed to living together with memories of her that now, when she was so close, I simply couldn't let go of her. Was I thinking of something specific? Unlikely. But I was hoping, naturally. I see you're not wasting any time. Nothing was worse than indifference, but if she got mad at me. I snatched the cocktail out of her hands and said snidely, "Getting an early start, are we?" As I raised the glass to my mouth, I heard Catherine's indifferent voice somewhere in the background. It's non-alcoholic. It really was. Sorry. You, on the other end, have kept to your habits, I see. What do you mean? Oh wait, he was drinking yeah. Nice. It's been a rough day. Yeah, how so? Are you really interested? Just keeping up with the conversation, or would you rather I ignored you? I sighed and answered, I was called to the principal office, same as always, skipping school. Well, you know me. Then there was also a curious episode with a certain Ojo-sama. Your new girlfriend? Are you mocking me? No, just keeping up the conversation. I don't have a girlfriend, nor have I ever. I see. How's Himitsu doing? You're so interested. You could visit her and ask. I don't think you've had a falling out with her. Maybe I will go see her. I wanted her to stay. You knew she was gonna mock me. Himitsu's fine. I don't know what else to tell you. Same as always, basically. Same as always, is she? Are you surprised that someone can actually treat me normally? Of course not. I'm happy for Himitsu. And I'll definitely visit her if I get the chance, but I need to go now. Goodbye. See you at school. Dang, bro, you took a beating. Don't even start. How about a drink on the house? Did you want to make up for it? No thanks, I've had enough for the day. Nah, maybe you should have a few more. Then go fight zombies. That sounds fun. In less than a year, I was gonna graduate, and then what? My dad's savings weren't gonna last long. I would need to get a job. Thoughts of higher education didn't even cross my mind, but what skills did I possess? Getting beat up? Did I want to toil interminably, day after day like the Japanese? Did you know there's even a special word in Japan that means death from overwork? Questions, questions. It was getting late. I'd been wandering aimlessly around the city for a number of hours, occasionally stepping inside stores or just window shopping. I was killing time, killing yet another day of my life. It was completely dark by the time I arrived at my house. The lights were on inside. I immediately remembered yesterday's note and a light shiver ran down my spine. Nah, that was ridiculous. An assassin waiting for a victim inside their house with the lights on. Still, logical or not, somebody was definitely inside. Probably Himitsu. I should have guessed right away. Who else would have needed me? Hi. Mitzi was sitting at a set table. She had apparently been waiting some time. Where have you been? I was worried. Don't worry, I got beat up. Talked to an ex-girlfriend. Nothing big. I ran into some robbers. Made short work of them, but got me in the eye. It's not nonsense. You want to see the police report? I asked Kisuke's Kone. He said you weren't there for the last few classes. I wasn't. What of it? Nothing. It's just so much has happened lately. I was worried. Why would you be worried about me? Do you think I was gonna go drown myself? No, I didn't. Nothing much happened anyway. I was about to add, at least not to you, but stopped myself at the last second. After all, Himitsu had done nothing wrong. Meanwhile, she was looking at me expectantly. I had to tell her something. We didn't do anything questionable. Maybe Himitsu didn't need to know about this. I was with Katya. Really cool. How's Katty-chan? Oh, that hurts. Himitsu replied without skipping a beat, as if reading from a script. I suppose she's fine, but you know how she is sometimes. You have to drag every word out of her. Alright, sit down and eat. Dinner's cold, of course, but you only have yourself to blame. I was, in fact, hungry as hell. We ate dinner in silence, without talking, without the TV, and without even looking at each other. I could almost feel the charge of tension in the air. It was one thing for me to stay silent, but why was Himitsu keeping quiet? Was it because I told her about Catherine? What was she hoping to achieve now? She knew I wasn't a fan of small talk, but the silence was becoming unbearable. How was school? Fine, that's it. Just fine. Nothing happened to Saya-chan? No, why do you ask? Probably because you've been quiet the entire dinner. I'm not quiet, I mean not on purpose. Then what was it? Because I was worried. Did you even check the time? You could have called at least. Called? Called where? Here? She replied in a faltering voice. How was I supposed to know you'd be here? We weren't living together last time I checked. Maybe we should. She mumbled softly. I pretended to not hear that. The conversation had clearly taken a wrong turn. Oh, you know what? I'm pretty tired today. Head home and I'll do the dishes. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night. When the door closed behind me, I sighed a breath of relief. Right now, I absolutely needed some alone time. I felt as though trapped between two fires, or even 3 or 4. A veritable ring of fire that was slowly, but surely closing in on me. And how was I acting? Sluggishly and indifferently, like a decrepit old man who had long stopped caring about his life. On one hand, there was Catherine, who I couldn't put out of my mind. The other hand was Himitsu, who wasn't happy to see Catherine back. Then there was the note, the new acquaintances, and my non-existent plans for the future. So uncertain. And even if the closet episode felt like I'd been set up attacking manga, it's an unpleasant one. What if Ellie could help with the note somehow? Maybe you should ask Kagome. Maybe she knows something. I was woken up by the telephone. And we'll leave off here. Interesting as always. My brother had mentioned that there's like a hint function or something to get good or bad endings, but we're just gonna stay blind and, well, hopefully not get the worst endings possible first try, but my luck is horrible. Hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button. If you didn't, thanks for watching anyway, and I'll see you in the next video. As always, goodbye.